welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the Sundae by Tryxus Designs. Now, I did kind of stuff up, but I'm kind of happy with it. I've actually put these zips in the opposite direction, but I really like how it looks. So if I was going to make this again, which I most likely will, I will still do it this way because I kind of like the opposite. It gives it more of a detail, but you can definitely do them the same way. So if you want to see how I do this, please stay tuned. Alright, let's begin. So I've actually got the pattern next to me, and I'm going to try to do the pattern in the same order for the video, which is not something I normally do. I usually just do it however I feel, but I thought I'd pull up the pattern beside me and make sure that I'm doing it in the order. So if you wanted to follow on with the pattern in front of you, that might be somewhat helpful. So I'm starting with my strap. And I'm just folding both sides into the center. I'm going to do a fabric on top because I like it and it's thinner. And I just like how it looks, really. So I'm pinching it to the center and then pushing down. I've also got a join in my vinyl right here. You can barely see it. I've joined it on the angle so that there's no bulk in one spot, because that would make it more difficult to go through the strap adjuster and things like that. So I've got a join, but it's pretty flat. So I did it where you do like one this way, one that way, sew it on the angle, and then I've top stitched down both the sides to ensure its flatness. And the reason I did the join is because I really wanted to use this colour, but I didn't have enough to do a solid piece. So the easiest way to deal with that is to just join two bits together. So I'm nearly there. This bit where the join is does tend to lift, but if you're worried, you can actually just stick a clip on the fold part to help crease it. It's not a big deal if you don't do that. I've got a band-aid on my hand today because I accidentally knocked it quite hard just before and knocked the top of the healing process off. Alright, so there's that. Now with my fabric, I've already gone ahead and ironed it so that both sides go to the center. So now I can stitch it. So I like to have a longer stitch length for this. So I've cranked it up to 4. So I've just got to make sure that both the raw edges are tucked under. It was a few days ago when I ironed this, so it's misbehaving a little bit. If that's happening to you, just iron it again. Would help if I turned my machine on. Alright. And needle down and pivot. Now I've put a new bobbin in so that I know I won't have any joins. Although it does kind of sound like it's misbehaving a little bit. Nope, there's definitely something wrong there. It could be anything. Usually you could actually just take your bobbin out and do it again. That usually fixes most of your problems. My machine doesn't want to be my friend this week, apparently. So I'm just going to unpick the last, let's say, 8 stitches that I could hear misbehaved, pull them out and trim off the excess. Then I can just stick it back under, make sure I backstitch, and off we go. Now this vinyl that I'm using is from an upholsterer, So it's actually quite thick. It's thicker than the normal stuff I use anyway. So we're getting up to that join, which isn't a big deal, but it's just lifted a little bit. I possibly could have scored the edges to keep it down more. Alright, so this whole half is misbehaving. So you can even just get a ruler like this and then score the edges so that it stays flat. There we go. If you want to do quicker sewing, you can actually just pin both of these together or use some double-sided tape. This one's being very stubborn. The other way is always quicker. I'm just going to chop off my excess fabric half an inch past where I need it to be so that I can tuck that raw edge under. Like so, and then continue stitching. Pivot, and then bring it back again. So I'm just tucking it under with my hand as I go. Nearly there. I'm also going to chop off these tails so I don't accidentally put them into the other side. So that was just where we had to stop and then rejoin the thread. If you leave a nice long tail, you'll remember to chop it off because it gets in your way. And backstitch. Right, so now I'm just going to join on my strap adjuster and then I can pop this aside. So in one side, down the other. Now I'm just going to use square rings directly on the bag, so my strap's not going to be removable. So I can just stitch this on. And then pop it aside and I'll finish it up at the end of the bag. So I'm just doing the cross. I recently decided I like the way it looks, so that's why I've started doing it. It's also definitely more secure because there's more stitches. So that's the strap. So now we can just pop that aside. Alright, what's next in the pattern? Strap connectors. There's the bit, but where's the fabric? Oh man. Alright, let me pause it and go find it. I found them. So, we're going to take some double-sided tape and do the same thing. And put both sides into the center. And then it says to top stitch on the outer edge. So that's what we're going to do. One edge, the other edge. And I'm doing it from the top because I like my top stitches more. And you can chop that one off, trim your tails. Alright. And then we are onto the main lining panel. Now my main lining panel is a little bit different in that it has a center seam because my fabric is directional. So all I did to do that was I added the seam allowance I wanted to use where it says the fold part. So I just added it to here and then stitched them together. And so now I have the same size panel piece. So it's asking us to mark the center points of the inner zipper pocket. So that one is, I've got them all clipped together. So I'm just looking for inner zipper pocket. Move all the rest over. Okay. So there, and then we need to do a zipper pocket hole. So I'm going to take my pen, I know what I mean, and I'm going to mark my zipper pocket. I'm just using a normal pen for this because it's on the back. I also didn't interface this cotton because it is actually quite a thick cotton. And then we need to mark it down like that. And then I'm going to put that there like so. I'm not giving my measurements out, guys, because you know by now that's not what I do. It's also not quite centered. There we go. So now I'm going to stitch around the zipper pocket panel. Making sure I backstitch at the start. Twist, stitch, twist, stitch, stitch. You get the idea. Could make a song out of that. There we go. Trim your tails. And then grab some scissors and chop the center of that box that we just stitched. So I always pinch it in half and just do like a little clip so that I can get my scissors in there. And then we're just going to stitch, cut out to the edge and then triangle out the corners. Like so, and then I'm going to push that whole zipper pocket through the hole that we've just cut. Like so. And then you can either iron or finger press that seam right there. So I'm just going to finger press it. And same with the top one, and then we're going to get our zipper. So, I am going to use, what colour zip do I want for this? I hadn't really thought that through. Let's do brown, since there's, you know, a nice brown vinyl. I think this colour brown is actually called coffee, but whatever's going. And then we're going to put our zipper pull on now. Otherwise you might forget, and then you'll sew your beautiful zipper pocket without a zip. I'm just going to use my zipper jig to pull it through. Okay, so what I do is I always like to have my zipper pull closing to the left. So that's how I'm going to sit it on the table. And then I'm going to take the pocket panel and just overlay it over the top of the zip. And then we're going to stitch it down. Whoopsies. Also, make sure you've got a long enough tail. My machine always tends to pull it out because I never leave long enough. And that's my issue if I don't like to waste thread, so I don't leave a huge tail. Okay, under, always have them going towards the back, so I'm going to hold it this time. Back stitch. I know that was a lot of back stitches just then, but you actually only need a couple. Needle down, and then zip it open so that your zip's not obstructing your stitching. And then spin the other way. And then needle down and zip it back up out of the way like that. And back stitch. Trim your tails. And yes, I am most likely going to say that every single time. Okay, and then you can just let the pocket fall down and we can stitch down the two sides. Now you can pick whichever pocket panel you'd like to turn the bag through. I'm picking this one because I think it's going to be the biggest. So this is the one I'm not going to seal at the bottom. But because there's two zipper pockets on the front, you could use any of them. Okay. Next is, let's have a look. Done all that. I did my pocket a little bit differently, but that's because I'm leaving it open. Oh no, she chops it anyway. Okay, slip pockets, which is piece B, which is this one. So it's got two slip pockets in the pattern. I'm just doing one to show you guys. So what we do is we fold them right sides together, like so. And then sew together along the top. Like so. Like so. I get that now. Right. Sorry. And then we're going to turn it out the right way and top stitch it so it looks pretty. You also may want to iron this. I'm going to finger press it so it stays where I want. And hopefully next week I'm going to work on having a portable mini iron that I can have in videos. Alright, so I'm going to top stitch along here like that. And then trim your tails. And then we're going to take this and our zipper pocket. So I'm going to hold my zipper pocket up so it's not going to get stitched in this. And then top stitch onto the main panel. And then lift it up that much from the bottom, so that's where it's going to sit. Again, I don't give out the measurements, guys, because it's in the pattern. Okay. So now we're going to sew some funky pockets. So I'm going to start from the top here, and I'm going to back stitch. This is more just a joining one at this point because that is my seam allowance. And then I'm going to stitch along that far, along the bottom. And this looks like a wonderful pen holder section. So it's going to have like a skinny section here, and then I'm going to stitch up to that top edge and back stitch. And then that's that one done. Then again, keeping my pocket out of the way so I don't accidentally stitch the pocket, I'm going to do the next one. And so the next one is, I'm going to stitch right next to that line. And then come across the bottom. And this is my big pocket. So I'm going to go to where I want that one and then swivel up, making sure, again, your pocket is out of the way. And then instead of chopping it off, what you could actually do is just go over a stitch or two and then come back down like that. Finish stitching along the bottom and then up the side, and then there's your second little pocket. Voila! And then you just repeat that for your second pocket. I like it. Okay. So that's the second pocket. Alright, so then we pop that aside and we're up to this piece. So this is piece number 4, which is your inside accent panel, which is what we're going to put our magnet in. So what actually might be the easiest way to do this is you can either mark it or you can just clip this and then punch a hole, because we're going to put a magnet over it anyway. So that is where the magnet's going to go. And I can do the same to the other one. Or you can just mark it with a pen. So if you don't want to punch the hole, because you don't actually need the hole, it's just for easy marking. So you could also just take a pen and do that and draw the hole instead. So I'm going to take my magnet, whoops, and I'm going to, with that center hole, use the center of the gasket to then mark the two sides like so. And then we'll do the same on the other one. And then I like to use a craft knife for this. But apparently my husband has borrowed it and it is no longer here. So we're going to use snips. So you can basically just kind of pinch each end and then snip together. So I put the snips on the end of my lines and then just clip the inner part. I wonder what you needed my craft knife for. It's a new one. Alright. So because they are both the same, it doesn't matter which side you're going to put this on. So you just stab it through, flip it, put the gasket on, and then I always bend my ends outwards because I think they sit flatter. But that's a bit of a personal preference. And because I've done vinyl, I haven't put an extra piece of stabilizer under here. I don't think it's going to need it. But if you're doing fabric, you should definitely do that. All the stuff nearly fell on the floor. So then we're going to take our inner panel and put right sides together and stitch along the top there. Now if you're new to sewing, definitely use some form of clipping. You can use the alligator clips, which are also hair clips by the way, or you can use wonder clips. It's an either or you can use none. I quite often use none, especially in my speed sewing videos. But I'm going to do some today just to show you. We're going to back stitch at the start because we always back stitch. And then back stitch at the end. And then if you pivot around, you can actually just fold this piece up and then top stitch, or you can fold the vinyl so it's down and top stitch on the fabric. That's probably the flatter option, so that's what I'm going to do, but you could do it either way. I suppose it really just depends on where you want your top stitching to be. Beautiful. So now we're going to do the same to the other end. So again, I'm probably not going to pin the second one because you saw how to do it with the first one. And then line it up and stitch along, preferably without knocking the rest of the bag pieces on the floor. Back stitch, turn, flip, and then top stitch. You can chop those threads in between doing that if you want to. And then back stitch. So now, this is what we've got going on. It's like a big piece, but I like it. Okay, what does she do next? So now we are going to clip it together. So what you want to do, the first thing you want to line up is this seam join. Because they're a different fabric, it will attract your eye if it's crooked. So I always clip there first and then clip up and then down the side. You can put, again, as many or as few clips as you like. You can switch it up and have a bunch of different ones. I'm just going with what's here. And then we're going to stitch down the side. And then we'll do the other side. So I, again, am going to start with that seam because I want that to be the neatest part. Because if you've done your seam allowance difference and one of these sides is just a little bit higher, we can always trim it down to match. But if you were to start at the top and your bit doesn't join up, when you open the bag, I promise it's the first thing people will see. So it's easier to trim off a little bit than have it looking crooked. Okay, and then back stitch at the end as well. Trim your tails. Look at all the ones I've been forgetting. See, this is what happens when I try not to say it. And then I imagine she wants us to do the corners. Yep. Please know, I do know how to do this bag. I'm just trying to be better at actually following instructions. So we're going to back stitch. Even though it's only a little seam, you still don't want it to come undone, because then you'll have to hand stitch it, and nobody likes doing that. So another little tip, whatever way that you've pushed this seam, we need to make sure that it's going the same way at the other end. So I'm going to, I just pull it out till the two seams meet up, and then I make sure that they're going opposite directions, but that this side and that side are the same, so there's no twist in the bottom of the bag. Like that. And so now, if you've done everything well, this should have already like magnetized itself. But that is now the inside of your bag. Now I'm going to open this zipper because this is where I'm going to turn the bag through later, obviously. But we can now pop that whole piece aside because your inside is done. So now we're going to need this bad boy. And not that. All right. So we need the bottom pocket lining, which is this one here, because it says it. That's why I clip everything together. So the bottom pocket lining, and this is the back, so this is the front. So this is where we're going to play on the short end. So we're going to clip this together and then measure where our box goes. So I'm just going to put 3 clips. I will have to move that middle one in a minute, but that's okay. So we need to go it's in centimeters. My brain has to convert it due to the fact that all my rulers only come in inches. I wish all the rulers would come in centimeters. I just live in centimeters. But anyway, so that will be there. So I'm going to measure down. And then I'm going to do the same to the other end. So again, I'm going to move this so that I can draw my line. There, like that. And then I'm going to put all my clips back. I know you can't really see what I'm doing right now, but I'm just moving the clips back. So I've drawn 2 lines, and now I'm just going to join those lines, like so. And that is what we're going to stitch. But because this is slippery, because it's vinyl that I decided to use in my infinite wisdom, I'm going to add some Wonder Clips so it won't slip while I'm trying to do this. And then I imagine, yeah, okay. So now we're going to stitch the rectangle on a joining stitch length, which for me is 2.5. And then we're going to pivot and we're going to stitch along there. And then we're going to pivot and stitch up and then back stitch. So you can take off your clips now. And we're going to take some scissors and we're going to cut on like a fun angle. As if we were triangling out these corners. Except we're only doing like half a triangle on each end. So that you'll get this. And so then this should, theoretically, bend out nicely like this. So you get like a nice sharp corner. Now I can't iron this because it's vinyl, so I'm going to just add lots of clips to help crease that crease. Crease the crease. Makes sense. So the Wonder Clips are going to help do that. Wonder Clips will work better than these ones. These ones don't have as much resistance, therefore they're not going to be as clippy. And yes, I did just say as clippy. I want them to be nice and strong to help with that crease. Now, obviously, I'm not going to keep these on, they're in the way, but that is then going to crease that down for me. So then we need some zipper tape. So I'm going to measure it. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to measure another one because I need another one for the next pocket that we're doing in the same fashion. Like that. And then we need to put zipper pulls on. So again, I like my zipper pulls to go from left to right. That is my personal preference. You do not have to follow that. You can do them the opposite way. 1 and 2. Alright, clear up my space. Now these have possibly, hopefully been on long enough to keep that crease. See? There's method to my madness. I promise. I put them there. Alright, so the zipper to the left. And then we're going to do the same thing I normally do and lay this over the top. And then we're going to stitch it down. So I'm going to go to a more decorative stitch length because I'm on vinyl on the outside. And again, you might have to fiddle with the lining a little bit if your creasing didn't work 100%. So I'm going to stop with the needle down, and then I'm just going to zip that over there so it's out of my way. Now I'm going slow and steady because I can't clip this with the Wonder Clips. Right. One zipper. And then, what are we doing next? Oh, we're not doing what I thought. I thought we'd do that. But we are going to take our second zipper pocket and our outer, oh my god, what have they fallen to now? Oh man. Alright, I gotta hit pause. I can't find the next piece. Computer. That's why I couldn't see it. I'm a different kind of special today. Alright. So this piece is just a bigger version of the inside piece. So it's got the same curve because obviously it needs to match up later. So we're going to take one of these pieces and place it upside down so the curve's towards you because we're going to deal with the other edge. And then we're going to do the same thing. So again, I want to clip it to it. Like so, and then I'm going to measure the same thing I just measured before. So I'm going to use a pen, measure it there, and then there. To be honest, this probably doesn't actually need to be clipped to it while you're measuring it. And then draw the line. I'm going to pop this one aside. I'll deal with that one in a minute. Back to a joining stitch, making sure that we back stitch. One more. Pivot down and back stitch. Trim your tails. And then again, we're going to cut on the angle like so and like so. There's no right or wrong amount of angle, just a decent one. So you can do it exactly 45 or you can eyeball it like I do because, you know, I don't have an angled ruler. And then again, I'm going to clip this to help crease the vinyl because I want this to sit nice. So lots of clips for this just to help with the creasing. And then I'm just going to let it sit there for a second and help that really, really stay, because that will help us when we're doing the next bit. Scroll down, scroll down. Oh, I can see what I forgot to do. Baste this pocket up. So while that's creasing, we can do this. So, as an optional extra, I'm going to do the basting because I like basting. One piece is much easier to work with. So I'm just going right along the edge. I'm using like a 1/8 of an inch basting stitch to make sure that that pocket is now closed. Like that. So now the pocket's closed, so we don't have to worry about that. And it's stitched to the top instead of clipped, so it won't be able to move when we attach our next piece. Okay, that should be long enough with the clipping. So again, we're going to lay the zipper down the way we want it. And then place this over the top of the zipper. See, I haven't left it long enough. Sometimes doing this back and forth against the vinyl will help with the creasing. Sometimes it doesn't. So again, lay it over like this. And then we're going to stitch with, I've got it to a longer stitch length because it's vinyl and I want it to look pretty. Alright, so I've just been pushing the zip with my foot to then zip it open out of the way, zip it up, and then we're just again going to fold this up against there and then baste it in place. And then backstitch. Trim the tails. And so now we have our top pocket, which is sitting a little bit funny until I put my hand in like that. There we go. So now we're going to take our middle accent piece. And so this is the bottom, so we need to attach this one to here, and then the other one to the other one. I'm pretty sure this is the order she wants it in. Yes, excellent. So, right sides together. Joining stitch length. Open the zipper so it's not in the way of your stitches. And then when you get close to it, stop with your needle down, zip it back up so it's still not in the way of your stitches. And then back stitch at the end. And voila. So we're going to do the same to the top. So we're going to take it, so that we're going to do it like this, and then right sides together. So you flip it down so it's joined. And then again, back stitch, stitch along. I also want to make sure that I'm moving that zip out of my way. Needle down, zip it open so I can finish off the seam, and back stitch. And then this pocket will sit down like this. Look, love it. And then we're going to top stitch that so it sits nice and flat. So I'm going to make sure that this piece is folded up towards where I'm top stitching, and I'm top stitching on the horses. If you top stitch on the zip, you won't be able to open or close it. So if you want to, you can make it more decorative stitch length. I have cranked mine up to 3.5, and I'm just making sure that that seam is underneath and top stitching. Like that. Trim off my tails. And then I'm going to do the same to the other one. So I'm going to hold the pocket up out of the way and just stitch the seam allowance down. And the reason we do this top stitching is it's not just a pretty effect, it also helps to hold this seam so that it doesn't bulge and move in the bag. Right. Done that, done that. All right. The piece I thought was next. So we're going to put this right sides down on the other piece. So the back of your bag. And then we're going to stitch it down with a joining stitch length. And then we're going to come back and top stitch it. Trim off the tails so they don't get in my way. So now I'm going to fold this so it's, you can either fold it up or down. I'm going to fold it down and then top stitch with a decorative stitch length. Like so. Oh, this is looking lovely. Now I'm going to zip my zips to the center so that I don't accidentally catch them in my seam. That's just a fun little trick to do with all bags so that you don't have that issue. Oh, it's looking lovely. All right. So then we're just going to fold it in half and join. So again, I'm going to start at this side join. Once I get rid of that. So we want to start here to make sure that they match up. And then clip it. Where did I put my clips? Oh, over here, so I wouldn't knock them. So I'm going to clip here and then work my way up. And then I can work my way down. Or I can start at the bottom and work my way to the center. There's not really a right or wrong way. So long as everything's matching up, you're pretty okay. As many or as few clips as you like. Joining stitch length and off we go. And I have a sneaking suspicion I'm out of bobbin thread. I am. That's right. I may have enough to finish the bag on this one. Okay. Always have your tails going behind your machine. Then we want to make sure that we're stitching the pocket and everything down the side. Like that. That way you're actually sealing your pocket and it's not just going to be some weird hole. So on the other side, I'm going to again start here in the center bit. And clip it. And then you can clip up. And then to the bottom. Make sure you're clipping all your pockets shut. And then stitch down this side too. Right. What would she like us to do next? Done that. Box the bottoms. It was either that or attach the strap connectors. So I'm just going to box the bottom. So I'm going to put the seam in the center. Pretty much all that is. And then stitch across. Oh, stop it. If you heard that noise, that was my bobbin misbehaving. And so then we're going to do the same to the other side as well. Whoopsies. So in the center, you put the seam from the last one. Don't start with me, machine. Oh, it's because I ran out of bobbin thread. All right, we're going to do another bobbin. So if you've never watched one of my videos, I just chop off the thread and then reattach it later because it's quicker. And I also got taught by my machine mechanic to oil your bobbin case every time you wind a bobbin. You should put a little bit of oil on your bobbin case. You can take a little bit out of here, out of the well, and then just squirt it on. And what that does is that gives more time between you needing for services because you've kept everything oiled. It's the only place that the oil doesn't get on an industrial is on the bobbin thing. So if you do it manually every time you wind a bobbin, you should never have an issue and you can go like years without a service. Or so I've been informed. Oops. Okay, now we can put the bobbin back in. Pick up the bag I just dropped on the floor. Sew that again. I don't know if you can tell, but that's a lot more quieter now. I can definitely hear the difference, but I'm pretty in tune with my machine. So you will find that it will sound quieter when you do these things. Okie dokie. Strap, slide, square, rings, I don't know. So we're going to slide it on and fold both sides into approximately the center. And then I'm just going to clip it down with some Wonder Clips so it stays in place for me. So you want the joined side to the inside so that we're not going to see it, like so. And then we are going to measure, so from the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this open so it's flat, this seam right here. And then we just kind of fold the bag back on an angle like this so that we can get it in there. And then we want to place where we're going to stitch this. So if you need some help holding it, you can either mark a line or you can use some double-sided tape. Whatever floats your boat, really. Okay, so that's where I want it. So now I'm going to bring it over to the machine. And I'm going to slide it up and under. And I want to be on my 3.5 stitch length because 2 will be too short and you'll over perforate your vinyl. So we're going to go forward 2, back 2, stitch to the lines, and then we're going to go on an angle down to the other corner, needle down and pivot, and then we're going to go across and then diagonally up. So we've made an X. And we haven't had to stitch over the sides so that we're not having double stitching there. So you get this look. I like it. You could also just attach this with rivets. So if you don't think that you can manage this, another way to do it is to just attach it with 2 rivets. And then you can skip the stitching part, especially if you don't think your machine can hack it. Alright, spread that open and down. And then again, I'm going to get it roughly where I think, and then just use the ruler to confirm. And I seriously nailed that first time. That never happens, guys. I usually always have to adjust at least a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take off the clip. Make sure that it's centered. And take off the other clip, because I can now use my fingers to hold it. Couple forward, couple back. Make sure you don't get your fingers. Keep them well and truly out of the way. And you also want to make sure that the seam underneath is open flat so that it's easier to sew. If you've got an industrial, it probably won't matter, but definitely for a domestic, make sure the seam's open flat or it'll be too thick and you'll skip stitches on your machine. Awesome. So now we just take our lining and turn it in the right way, like this. Now this is where you want to think about where your zipper is. So I want my zippers to close on the same side. Or do I? It probably doesn't matter, actually, because it's the inside. But what I am going to do is I am going to push these down so that I don't accidentally clip them while I'm stitching. So you just shove the inner bag. Hold on, you can't really see what I'm doing. Right, so we're shoving the bag inside with right sides touching. And then we're going to make sure that both of these seams are opened and then clip them together. Open seams are going to be easier to stitch along. It is slightly less important if you have an industrial that can handle it. However, you want to make sure that you've pushed it the same both directions for the whole bag, or it might then sit funny. So I'm just going to start with the two seams, because if they don't match up, again, it's going to be noticeable. Everything else could be wonky, but if your seams match up, it'll still look good. And then we just clip around the bag. Grab a handful out because it's easier. I actually probably want my clips facing the lining because that's the way I'm going to stitch it. That's way too many clips, but you get the idea. So now we just pull back. You can start wherever. So I'm not going to start on a seam because that's annoying. I'm going to start right here, which is nowhere in particular. You want to go slowly over that seam to make sure that it's going to stay flat and not kick over to one side. Clean up your wonder clips as you go. Okay, now, before we turn it inside out, you want to take your snips and you want to cut out the bulk from here and here. And so that means that on a domestic machine, it's going to be much easier to top stitch when we turn it out. So that's my advice. You just cut like a, it's not even a triangle, but it's just close in and then kind of dig it back out again. So now we put our hand through the pocket lining and I'm going to grab a corner and I'm going to push it in to make a poppet. And it's also something to grip on. So I'm actually making a fist while grabbing it, and then that should quite easily just pull through. Once you get the lining all the way over the bag, the rest of it's the easy part. See? And out she pops. So now you can do up the outer zipper pockets. Oh, mine are going opposite ways. That's what happens when I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. Right, so the reason that happened is because I was using one upside down, so I should have put it the other way. I'm still cool with it. Gives the bag a sense of mystery then. Alright, so then I'm just going to tuck under the raw edges and zip the pocket shut. So you want to get as close to that edge as you can without actually falling off the edge. And then we can just push all of that down. And all of this down. And then you kind of roll it in your fingers. And then I'm going to do this. I know it looks dramatic, but I'm just tugging in opposite directions on the vinyl to help get that crease really set in there. You just roll it through your fingers until you get it right on the edge. And then yank it back and forth. You can't really be too harsh on it. If you do this and the bag breaks, there's a problem to begin with. Right. So now we just need to top stitch. So I'm going to crank it up to a decorative top stitch length. And I'm going to start close to, but not directly on, that edge seam. So if you're a beginner sewer, you should do a 1/4 inch because it's easier. And if you're more advanced or you're heading towards the more advanced, do an 1/8 of an inch. Because it's easier to fall off the edge at an 1/8 of an inch than a 1/4. Both will still look nice. So don't think your 1/4 inch seam allowance will look worse. Because I used to do that when I started. I did a bigger seam allowance so I wouldn't fall off the edge. Now that seam at the side should now be quite easy to sew over because we took all the bulk out. And then again, I'm going to fold down that little strap connector. And then once I get back to the start, I'm going to do 2 back stitches and trim it off. Okay. So now we just need to attach our strap. So we've already got it. So what I do is I hold the bag towards me and then I hold the join side out and I'm going to thread this down through that side. Oop. Like that. So down that side and then making sure nothing's twisted, we're going to go back up through one side of the strap connector. Now the easiest way to check if it's twisted is pull it tight and do this to ensure that everything's fine. Then we're going to go back down the other side of the strap connector. And then I'm going to come over and under so that the join's facing the inside of the bag. So from the outside, it's quite neat. So before you stitch it, make sure that nothing is twisted. And then I'm going to do the cross. I don't need that much. So you can just adjust it down until it's, you know, the length that you actually want. Forward, back, down, and then spin the bag. So I don't want to spin it that way. I want to come this way. and come down diagonally. And then again, spin the bag around, needle down, and then diagonally back up to finish your cross. When you get back to the start, back stitch. Get it out from under the machine, and then I'll trim the tails down flatter or shorter. I'm also going to come along with a lighter and just singe the ends because I'm using a nylon thread. They melt without incident. And I'm also going to melt the ends where I started and finished. Now you should always use the blue part of the flame and not the red, and then it won't discolor your thread. Especially if you're using like a lighter color, you don't want that to happen. But there you go. Super cute. I'm actually kind of happy I did opposite zips. It's kind of more fun. One way, one the other. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, guys. And until the next video, there's going to probably be a few less videos over the next month because I have a very large order I have to complete and I actually have a deadline for it. But I will try and do as many as I can fit in. All right, bye.